already slaves, we have allowed a diabolically clever alien minority to put chains on our souls and our minds. These spiritual chains are a truer mark of slavery than the iron chains which are yet to come. Looking at it philosophically, one can avoid the conclusion that it is corruption, not tyranny, which leads to the overthrow of governments. A strong and vigorous government, no matter how oppressive, usually need not fear revolution, but a corrupt, inefficient, decadent government, even a benevolent one, is always ripe for revolution. The system we are fighting is both corrupt and oppressive, and we should be thankful for the corruption. Get down hard with all you've got! If someone gets in your way, they will be shot! Current violence! Rules of communication! Facilitate people's fear! It's the only thing they hear! Is able to keep the economy somehow gasping and wheezing along, the people can be conditioned to accept any outrage. Despite the continuing inflation and the gradually declining standard of living, most Americans are still able to keep their bellies full today. And we must simply face the fact that that's the only thing which counts with most of them. But it has permeated our whole society. Even those who do not consciously accept the liberal doctrines have been corrupted by them. Decade after decade, the race problem in America has become worse. But the majority of those who wanted a solution, who wanted to preserve a white America, were never able to scrub the courage to look the obvious solutions in the face. Hit them hard with all you've got. If someone gets in your way, they will be shot. Terrorist violence, rules of communication, facilitate people's fear. It's the only thing they hear. The only thing they hear. The only thing they hear. Against communists! Us against Jews! It's down to the wire! The water is boiling! Stand up and fire! What will you do when they kick down your door? What will you do when they take away your guns?
Will you join in with them or stand up and fight? Force and violence! The smell is in the air! You forced us to this stage with fingers on the trigger and eyes full of hate! What will you do when they kick down your door? What will you do when they take away your guns? Will you join in with them or stand up and fight? Victory is ours! Buildings on fire! Bodies in the streets! We can ask for nothing more! No more Jews! No communists! The white race has won the war! The white race has won the war! Are you an active member, the kind that would be missed? Or are you just content that your name is on the list? Do you speak the truth and mingle with the flock? Or do you stay at home and criticize and knock? Do you take an active part to help the work along? Or are you satisfied to be of those that just belong? Do you ever volunteer, help in a guiding stick? Or leave the work to a few and make the rest of us sick? Do your part often and help with hands and heart. Don't be just a member, take an active part. Think this over strongly. You know right from wrong. Are you an active member or do you just belong? This applies from day to day. Don't you ever cower. With all hands raised in the air, let me hear white power. world problem. Conceptualizing maturation, confiscating infection. As time elapses and collapses, pouring and ignoring, procreating with animals, man becomes the horde, setting the stage for war. Massive religion dominates, welcoming a world of degeneration. Multiculturalism today, multiplication tomorrow. As time elapses, society collapses, forgiving and accepting, turning the other cheek. Man becomes the horde, setting the stage for war. Sedimentary becomes a staple, forging with the cause organism. Destination disintegration, destined for annihilation. As time elapses, system collapses, modifying and solidifying. Out of possibility, man becomes a whore, setting the stage for war.
you of men who do not have the moral toughness, the spiritual strength to stand up and do single combat with life, who cannot adjust to the reality that the world is not a huge pink and blue padded nursery in which the lions lie down with the lamb and everyone lives happily ever after. And the conservatives, of course, have redoubled their squawking and cackling that we're ruining all chances for an improvement in conditions by provoking the government with our violence. What the conservatives mean when they talk about improvement is the stabilization of the economy and another round of concessions to the blacks so that everyone can return to consuming in multiracial comfort. The American people have already proven that they can shamelessly continue their crass pursuit of pleasure under the most provocative conditions imaginable. So long as new provocations are introduced gradually enough for them to become accustomed to them. That's our greatest danger in not acting. I guess there are a lot of other people who think they are playing it smart by looking out for themselves and letting us take all the risks and do all the dirty work. They figure they will reap the benefits with us if we win. They won't lose anything if we lose. That's the way it has been in most other wars and revolutions. But I don't believe it'll work out that way this time. Our attitude is that those whose only concern is to enjoy life in these times of trial for our race do not deserve life. Let them die. In the conduct of this war, we certainly will not concern ourselves with looking out for their welfare. More and more it will be a case of either being for us all the way or against us. Hit them hard! With all you've got! If anyone gets in your way, they will be shot! With all you've got! There in silence!
shock to break old habits of thought. This is the only way. Breaking chains, bringing on. Most judges today, most teachers, actors, civic figures, etc. are not being consciously and deliberately evil or even cynical in following the lead of the Jews. They think of themselves as being good citizens, just as they would think of themselves if they were acting in a diametrically opposite way under the influence of good leaders. Traitors to the race! Sung up in haze! Live in bloody day! This is the only way! Bringing faith, bringing hope! It's something of the road! And down the road! Down the road! The politicians, the lawyers, the businessmen, the TV personalities, the TV newscasters, the newspaper reporters, the newspaper editors, the judges, the teachers, the school officials, the civic leaders, the bureaucrats, the Hollywood actors and actresses, the preachers, the priests. You will hang in disgrace. The sign around your neck will read, I betrayed my race. But down the road! But down the road! Buried outside the race! Whites buried the blacks! Whites buried the Jews! Those buried outside the race! You will hang in disgrace! The sign around your neck will read, I defiled my race! The hanging of a few of the worst race criminals in every neighborhood in America will help enormously in straightening out the majority of the population and reorient their thinking. In fact, it will not only help, but it is absolutely necessary. The people require a strong